For the first time since he was traded at the 2021 deadline, Javier Baez is coming back to Wrigley Field, this time as a member of the Detroit Tigers. We're going to talk about Javier Baez and some of his best moments in Chicago and more on this edition of the Cubs Baseball Channel. Make sure to like and subscribe. Get in that comment section. Let us know how you're feeling about this team as they continue a series against the Detroit Tigers. Here is your invitation to our show. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Cubs Baseball Channel. My name is Anthony Pasquale. He is Mick Gillespie, and you can find him on Twitter at Broadcaster Mick. You can find me at @Ant_Pasquale3, and you can find our show on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, as well as YouTube, where you guys are watching right now. So make sure to follow along on there. Join us on those other channels as we keep you guys posted on Cubs content all the time. But the big storyline today, Cubs take on the Tigers, and Javier Baez is back in town. A guy as instrumental as anybody to the 2016 World Series championship run. Mick, what are your thoughts on Javier Baez returning to Wrigley Field?
I've seen a lot of players over the years, and I know that his time in Detroit hasn't been what we expected or what he expected. But, man, I'll tell you, when he was coming up, the guy had just a magic. He was a great teammate. He just always seemed to have a nose for where the ball was. He was super competitive. And it took someone like him for the Cubs to win their first World Series in over 108 years, you know. And I absolutely loved every minute of watching him play the game. There's just something about his ability to feel the game, to kind of be in the moment. And I honestly, I hate seeing, you know, how bad things have gone for him lately, but I'm a huge fan.
I think that's the easiest way to put it. I think Obvious Shirts had one of those shirts that said, Javier Baez is your favorite player's favorite player. Like, he was so entertaining, and he just brought like, he had the nickname El Mago for good reason. He was so magnificent on the field in so many different facets. We've known that he's a big power hitter, kind of a free swinger, doesn't have the greatest eye. But for me, what I remember most from Javier Baez is that he was elite at things that you didn't even know a player could be elite at. He was the best tagger I've ever seen by a mile. Like, some of the tags that he put down, I've never seen anybody do anything close to that. And I think the reason why is because he's a natural lefty. Like, he writes lefty. So then catching it and tagging lefty was so easy for him. And then the way he slid, it was like, that's probably where he got the magic part of the nickname is head first or feet first. He was able to evade tags with the best of them. Like, I think Matt Vasgersian said one time, he is part baseball player, part contortionist. And just the control that he had over his body was incredible to watch. And then his arm from third base or short was one of the strongest I've ever seen on the left side of the infield. So it was awesome to watch him play as a Cub. Like you said, it's a little bit sad to see what has happened kind of to his career since he left. But boy, did he put up some magical moments here in Chicago and specifically at Wrigley.
We do a show with Tim Wilkin, which I guess we got to get another MLB Baseball Scout podcast going. But when Tim was the Cubs scouting director, him and I always loved to talk baseball together. And he was telling me, he's like, hey, this guy, I think we're going to get him. It was before the draft. And he was like, I think we're going to get him. And he was like a high school guy out of Jacksonville. And he's like, you're going to love this guy. And I remember, and just knowing kind of what I like about the game and the things that get me excited about baseball. And then I see him, they draft him, and I'm like, this guy's got a baseball. Like, he's got this tattoo right here, you know, tattoo on his neck. And I'm thinking, like, I don't know, man. Like, that's not really my thing, you know. Is this guy? And I knew a kid who, you know, was drafted, didn't make it, but was a pretty good ball player, and he had like MLB bound on his tag. And I remember thinking, like, man, that's, you know, it's going out there a little bit. What if you don't make it?
For sure.
And so I'm like, okay, just trying to figure out, like, who this Javi Baez is. And then when I started like getting to call his games and watch him and see all of the little things that he would do, like he had this play where he'd be at third and there'd be a lefty on the mound and he would set the guy up to steal home. Like he would have like a signal for the runner at first. And the minute that the guy paid, basically did anything to keep that guy from going somewhere, he'd steal home. And it worked,
Yeah, it worked a lot. Like
Yeah,
he did
right.
that play in the majors. Like that wasn't
Yeah.
just something he would pick on minor league pitchers with.
No.
That worked forever.
No, I mean, it's stuff like that, the slides, the clutch home runs. I text Len Casper when he had his first game in the big leagues, and I'm like, this guy's just going to do something big. I just knew it. And he hit a home run. Remember, he beat Colorado.
Yeah.
In the late innings. So I don't know. I can't stand seeing him and Kris Bryant as just such below average players because they're always going to be legends to me.
Yeah, and they are. They're part of. You see it right up here. They're part of that World Series championship team. I'm coming out with an article today on Cubs HQ about Javi Baez's best moments. So before I give you my list, 10 down to 1, what are some of the ones that strike your mind when you think of Javier Baez?
Well, I mean, the home run that he had in the playoffs against Johnny Cueto to me is one of the biggest hits that the Cubs have ever had because the Giants at that point were winning World Series every other year, and they were the team that I felt like had the best chance of beating the Cubs that year.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Cubs beat them in the playoffs, and they were really some grinded out games that the Cubs had to get through to get to the World Series. So, that's definitely one of them. The play against the Pirates is just like, where the first baseman gets all he's got to do is touch first base.
And he runs him back home.
Yeah, he runs him back home and makes a mistake, and it was like, wow, but there was the slide at second base where he swim moves around the guy. There's so many, we could sit here and do like a top 50 on
I know
crazy Javier Baez plays or home runs that he hit in clutch moments. I was calling a World Series. I was calling a no-hitter in the minor leagues, and it was the 9th inning of the game, and Javi Baez made the most incredible play to save the no-hitter. It was a line drive that should have been up the middle for a base hit, and he caught it. It was like the most amazing play, and I couldn't even believe it. I didn't even see how he was even in position to do it. That's just the kind of guy he was, man. Just always like a step ahead of everybody.
Yeah, he was truly a magician on the field, and he seemed to really dive into being an entertainer of Cubs fans too. And I think the fans obviously adored him. Some of the moments that you just mentioned are on my list, obviously. My actual number one moment was that homer off of Cueto. Number 2 was the Mother's Day walk-off with the pink bat into the bleachers. Number 3 was that rundown against the Pirates. Number 4, the game-winning hit against the Giants to close them out on the road. Number 5, when he did that steal of home in the playoffs and shielded his head because the throw was coming from third and he slid in safe. Homered in Game 7 of the World Series. That was number 6. Had that 3-run homer against the Cardinals in the 2015 playoffs. I have his steal of home on the 4th of July where he had that crazy swim move slide into home plate.
Yeah, that was a great one.
Homer in his major league debut. And then the last one was his walk-off hit against Amir Garrett, which was really his last hit as a Cub. So that was a pretty fitting one. And then he used the bat and swept him off the field. But
yeah,
I mean, he
didn't like Amir Garrett. That was a kind of a weird rivalry. I never thought I'd see him like this down. And I bet you he'll have a good series against the Cubs. He'll bring his best, but it's sad to see, he's the only reason he's still playing is because he's got a long-term contract. I mean, if it wasn't for the contract, he'd be out of baseball.
Yeah, he is certainly due a lot of money over the next 5-6 years. But like we said, he is returning to play the Cubs today. Cubs against the Tigers at 7:05 p.m. The Cubs come into this game 3 games below 500. They are in 3rd place in the NL Central, 11.5 games back of the Brewers and 5.5 games back in the wild card mix. We talked about these same odds as yesterday, just because they were off, or same odds as 2 days ago because they were off yesterday. 3.7% chance to make the playoffs and a 0.6% chance to win the division. We don't know who's pitching yet for this series. I think probably because the Cubs are going to consider moving Justin Steele up after not going past the second inning because of those rain delays over the weekend. But a series against the Tigers with the playoffs still in the back of your head, got to take advantage of playing a team that, isn't very good.
Yeah, I mean, and I was thinking about, like, reports coming out that the Cubs are going to go after Corbin Burns. Did you see that where they like reunite Craig Counsell with Corbin Burns? And, and I think about like this season and kind of where we are right now. And you look at what the Brewers are doing with a roster that shouldn't be as competitive as the Cubs roster, but they know how to win. And then I think about the Cubs and it's like, we don't know who's going to start. And I mean, honestly, it could be a tough game. I mean, it's there's nothing easy for this team, but these are games that you got to win. They got a 96-point chance not to make the playoffs, right? So right. You're not in the playoff hunt, but you got to go out there and maybe think that you're able to pull off a miracle.
Yep, the Cubs are 61-64 heading into the series against the Tigers. They haven't been able to get to that 500 plateau that we've been pushing them to get to, because it just makes everything easier. If they are able to sweep Detroit, they would be 64-64 heading into the weekend. So we'll keep our eyes on that, and we'll be rooting for it. But obviously today is Javier Baez's homecoming, coming back to Chicago. So we'll have our eyes on that one tonight for sure. But guys, thanks so much for joining us for this edition of the Cubs Baseball Channel. Leave us in the comment section your favorite Javier Baez moment. I'm sure we mentioned about 15 of them. I'm sure there's another 30 that we didn't get to. That's how special of a player he was. So let us know your favorite Javier Baez moment. Keep subscribing and liking, getting in our comment section and following us on those social medias. But for now, we'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Go Cubs.
Go Cubs.